Today on Locked On Rockies, Rockies fans tell me to pump the brakes a little bit after yesterday's episode, and the Rockies reunite with an old outfielder. Well, old is not the best way to say that.
You are Locked On Rockies, your daily Colorado Rockies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Rock on Rockies fans, welcome into the Locked On Rockies podcast for today, the 29th day of February. Yes, the 29th day of February, a leap year day, in case you forgot. I'm Paul Holden, your host of the Locked On Rockies podcast. Thank you so much for making us your first listen of the day. Thank you to our everydayers out there for letting me know what's on your mind, for following along, for watching the show, tuning in, and enjoying your daily Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. And if your team is the Colorado Rockies, guess what? You're in the right spot, because that's what we do around here each and every day. Talk Rockies baseball. And on today's episode, we had some great interaction in the YouTube comments yesterday. So we're going to read some reactions from you folks here on the pod today. Going to talk about the Rockies reuniting with Sam Hilliard, of course. And we are going to, we'll do our little recap, see what's up, what's going on with the Rockies here. Spring training rolling along, March right next door as we get one day closer to opening day. We're going to do all that and more today on the Locked On Rockies podcast. But a reminder, your subscription, your liking of the video, your interaction on the Locked On Rockies YouTube page is one of the best way to help the show grow. Really do appreciate all the support here that has been going on throughout the offseason. Rockies fans are really turned up this offseason and into spring training. Really appreciate y'all. Hey, before we dive into everything today, today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Okay, so I was, kind of going through, figuring out what we're going to do for the show, and I checked the YouTube comments, and there's a couple of good things. I expressed some concerns yesterday, and people were like, whoa. It's spring training. It's the second week. It's technically the first full week of spring training. What are you doing being worried about some of these players? Let's read what some of the fans had to say here. Sean here says, I totally understand your concern about the bullpen, but this is what spring training is for, learning through your mistakes. The poor performances have been from players who are not going to be in the bigs this year, like Vodnik and Ponticelli. In those two games, the actual big league arms played great. Guys like Kinley, Evan Justice, Jake Bird, Caracetti. The only bad adding was Hallowell, who is a bubble guy. I agree the mentality of the pen needs to improve, but if someone is going to get blown up in spring training, I'm glad it's a minor leaguer so they know what to improve on. Side note, I like the Sam Hilliard move. I think that Brad Simmer signing was odd to me from the start, and I think a strong lefty bat off the bench who can play every outfield spot is a good idea. We will dive more into the Sam Hilliard stuff in a little bit, but because Sean's not the only one to bring up our the reunion here for the Rockies in a move that I actually kind of like as well. Let's see. User, I don't know. There's not much of a username here, but I'm not concerned as yet. Spring training, got to let these guys make mistakes. Your pitching coaches and players need to make their adjustments. Very valid here as well. That, I think that's where I want to start. Yeah, I absolutely, I totally understand that. It's early, it's young guys, it's guys that are figuring out. I totally understand that. But when we're just analyzing spring training games, and when we're looking for the things that worry us, those games just had the same type of formula of how the Rockies lost games last year. The same type of way where it just seemed like those games were a repeat of last year. And like I said, I understand the context of the situation, but when we're looking at things that we want the Rockies to work on throughout the spring, that's the type of stuff right there. That's the type of stuff where that's got to be cleaned up here. Let's see. I think Sean said Vodnik won't make the roster. He was technically considered a dark horse candidate by some outlets there to make the roster. So there is some potential there. But yeah, spring training, all about taking your lumps, adjusting, and getting ready to go. It was just when you compared that to what the impressive stuff, the surprising stuff from the early start to spring training, that's when that's why I use the word concern there, because if that trend continues, you get even more worried, especially with the bullpen. But Sean, you bring up a great point where the big league arms so far actually have been solid. The starters for the Rockies, the guys that need to impress for the Rockies, the guys that need to get in the groove of things, have been impressive here. Austin Gomber only goes an inning there, does give up the walk, but no damage done yesterday. Noah Davis gets a couple of innings, gives up a couple of hits, but gets a strikeout. This is probably the lowest strikeout game I think the Rockies have had as a rotation, yesterday's game against the Angels. But the guys that are with the Rockies here, as I'm looking down, I know Palmquist went down with an injury yesterday. I'll look up the details here. But Ty Block going to getting a strikeout. Justin Lawrence getting his inning. Riley Pint, gets another inning there with the walk. So it's good to see that the hopefuls are doing well. And Riley Pint's still struggling with that control a little bit, but working on it. There's still a ton of time left in the spring. It's just, if we're having this same conversation a month from now, late March, leading into the season, that's going to make me extra worried. That's going to be, when I just see those type of performances, that's where I get the concern level. But that's why I'm calling this the pump the brakes, Paul, segments. Pump the brakes. It's the first week of spring training. These guys got to go through, get their lumps, go through the get back in action, build up that arm strength. Everyone's going through it right now. That also probably relates to, the success the Rockies are having as well, as other teams are figuring it out. It's not the only reason, but it's certainly a factor in that. All right, but let's keep going on here. Moon Unit says, you had a previous episode on whether we'd rather see better pitching or hitting from the Rockies. As a former pitcher, I'd prefer to see fewer high-score innings from the other team. On the other hand, the left-on-base numbers leave something to be desired in terms of the Rockies putting together multiple hits to get those extra runs when they need them the most. I'm wondering if your opinion has changed since you'd rather see better offense than pitching. I really like this revisit, and I really like the way that you phrase that question of eliminating the big inning, eliminating the crooked number inning. We talked yesterday about that Dodgers inning, 5 runs in an inning, a 5 spot. That type of stuff just can't happen. And as much as I do want to see that, as much as that would be, if the Rockies are able to limit those and prevent those big innings, they're going to squeak out some extra wins here and there. I still put most of my primary focus on the offense. I think the offense taking the step forwards is still more important this year than the pitching. I think the pitching staff, the big year of fixing it or really evaluating or really diving in, maybe trying to go bring in a free agent arm, it's probably going to be next year, because they're going to have to make decisions here with Herman. They're going to have to make decisions with Senzatella. They're going to have to make some decisions with some of these back end of the guys. And as we talked yesterday, Roxpile even thinks that, Dakota Hudson or Quantrill could be on the move here at the trade deadline to free up some space for Herman. So as much as I agree, I think that that prevention of the high score innings is critical. I mean, that is going to be key to the success of the Rockies. I think that your point about the left on base numbers, the Rockies being a weak offense for years now, I still think that getting that opportunity, I still think capitalizing on those opportunities is how you're going to win more ball games as the Rockies. I think extra offense and running teams out of Coors Field is how the Rockies win ball games and how the Rockies can unlock the true potential of Coors Field and everything. I just still think that the Rockies' biggest strength always, well, I guess that's an interesting one, because there's arguments to be made that defense is the most important thing for Coors Field, but I just think offense is critical, and especially in this year, there's just so many guys that we want to see impress on offense and need to impress on offense that I still think I'm more focused on the offense. I'm still think that is the bigger key, but realistically, like you can't tell the story of the Rockies without talking about pitching as well. But I'm still sticking with my focus of offense is important because there's just so many players that build up the foundation of this team that we need to see offensive production from increased or consistent or or better in general. So that's where I'm at on that. Really great questions here. And I got another great one here from K Gold that I want to talk about here, which is good, challenging me a little bit with this one as well. So we're going to keep the Pump the Brakes Paul segment going, continuing here, coming up in segment number 2. Before we do that, though, got to tell you about some of the folks that help make this show possible, and that includes Gametime. Folks, I am not kidding you when I tell you that Gametime is one of my favorite ways to buy tickets. It's simple. It's easy. You can do it right up until the last second and even an hour after the event. Maybe you're not all that interested in an opener for a band. Maybe you're half and half still, but that little voice in your head tells you, you gotta go. Gametime has got you covered. Last minute tickets, flash deals, zone deals, so many opportunities for you to save money. And my favorite part, when you're picking your seat at Gametime, you're gonna see where you're sitting. They provide you an image of where you're gonna sit. You are going to be able to get a full understanding of what you are spending your money on. And with the Gametime guarantee, you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section or row for less, Gametime will credit you 110%. 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON. That's code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. This is the Locked On Rockies podcast for free and streaming on your favorite streaming services, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. If your team is the Colorado Rockies, guess what? You're in the right spot. It's what we do around here each and every day. If you're looking for more great sports coverage here, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV in the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. Okay, we are doing a segment called Pump the Brakes, Paul. Well, part 2 of Pump the Brakes, Paul, because we had so many commenters yesterday on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel telling me, hey, hold on, let's give our boys some time. Let's figure out this spring training stuff. Let's see how this preseason continues. And I said, all right, you know what? Fans are bringing up some good points. Let's talk about it on the show today. And that's what we're doing. Remember, best way to help the show, best way to participate the show, best way to be part of the show, liking, subscribing, being a part of the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel. Here's K Gold 53. Your excitement about the stolen base focus should be curbed. While stealing more on the road is a good thing if the players can do it efficiently, given how they have to scratch for runs away from Coors, it should absolutely not be a priority at Coors Field. As someone once said, you're in scoring position at first base at Coors, and running out of innings or getting thrown out at Coors is a toot bland. Whether done via the caught stealing or via being thrown out, trying to go first to third, or stretching a single into a double. Avoiding those outs and giving hitters an opportunity to hit the vast gaps of Coors or over the wall is a much smarter strategy. Until the Rocks can generate harder contact, they won't score enough anyway. Pressing on the base paths a mile high should be avoided. Okay, you know what? I think that the Rockies have not proven themselves enough as base stealers for me to be abundantly confident in their ability to do it, whether that be from the coaching staff calling them at the right times and the players executing them. I'm confident in 3 players to steal bases. I don't think I got to disagree with you at Coors. I get what you're saying. I totally, and it makes sense. Why take an unnecessary risk at a place that rewards you for not needing to take those unnecessary risks given the dimensions of the ballpark? I've seen too much bad Rockies offense since the playoff years for me not to believe that the Rockies are going to need ways to generate offense at home and on the road. I think that if you have speed on your team, especially if the Rockies are going to be able to take good leads, good stuff off the bag, and get those pickoff attempts to go there. Remember, those pickoff attempts are mixed in with the fact that you might have a defense that could be a little bit more tired at Coors. If we're focusing on Coors Field factors here, which is part of what we're doing, that fatigue for the other team is a real thing. If you're able to, I said this, running teams out of the yard in the first segment. If you are keeping the pressure on teams while you're at Coors Field, I think that's a benefit. I think when teams have to come into Coors Field knowing the mindset of, wow, the Rockies plan to do everything in our power to drain us of energy, drain us of momentum, drain us of strength. If we're really going to focus on the Coors Field elements, that's the type of stuff. But absolutely, it depends on situations, and getting yourself out and running yourself out of big innings could be a problem. And over aggression on the base paths can be the leading factor there. We just haven't seen the Rockies themselves as a team be an ultra aggressive base running team. So I don't know how much of a negative impact this will have when the Rockies have three guys that were really confident that can steal a base. Heck, Charlie Blackmon was still stealing bags last year. I mean, he is someone that there are. I'm not saying it's got to be everyone, as my kind of pumped upness alludes to a little bit, but your main focus of base stealers should be a base stealing threat, home, away, on the moon, in Mexico City when they play in Mexico City. I think if you're going to be a team that uses base stealing, you got to use it all the time, especially because if you get into a situation where teams are kind of counting on you to steal more on the road, factoring that into their their game plans and their prep for the Rockies as well. But it's a good point. I mean, it's a tough situation to always. You can try too much, right? You can overdo it. You can develop an over resilient reliance. I think that's where I'm trying to go. You can become too reliant, on stuff like this, maybe doing small stuff. And if you keep being over aggressive and you keep, making 1 out innings turn into 2 because you were trying to do something, move around too fast or do too much base stealing, yeah, that's going to be a problem. I just still think that the rules of the game being what they are, some of the players that the Rockies have on their roster and the approach in spring training signal that this team wants to be way more aggressive on the base paths. And I love it. I will say, I think you got some great points, K Gold. I think that you are absolutely, you are introducing some risk to the game. You're introducing, you're just adding in extra ways for the Rockies to get out and for the Rockies to lose out on scoring opportunities. But I think by being active, aggressive base runners, they will generate more opportunities versus the opportunities they miss out on. I could be wrong. I'm not sure, but I just think if the focus on base stealing is only on the road, that's going to be a problem. But I think they should be better at base. I think base stealing should, if they are going to steal bases, the road is going to be a key place to do it. That is because you mentioned their inability to score on the road. If that is key. But I think that it's an interesting point because I think that with Coors Field as your home field, that does add in a layer of context. It adds a layer of challenge to the base stealing philosophy for those reasons you mentioned there, K Gold there. It's you're in scoring position at first in Coors. Running out of innings, getting thrown at Coors is a toot plan. I love the phrase toot plan. But anyway, great comment there, K Gold. I really like where you are, where you're coming from. I like that you again pump the brakes. Keep it realistic. I like when we can. I like when those type of comments come in. Let me know what the Rockies fans are thinking there. All right, let's talk. Let's do one more comment here, and because this will lead into our the final segment of the show here. Tracy, fan of the show, big time fan of the show, says, excited to see the Rocks claim Sam Hilliard off waivers today. This gives us someone to back up Doyle. Like this move shows me the Rockies are watching the waiver. Hoping to see some improvement from the young pitchers as we get deeper into the spring. Thanks for the shout out, Paul. Well, you know what, Tracy, here's another shout out. Shout outs to you. Shout outs to all of you for commenting here and letting me know what's on your mind. These are some of my favorite episodes when I get to read from y'all. Let's talk Sam Hilliard. Let's talk about the reunion. And I like it. I do think that this is a fine move that it's not flashy. It's not big, but left-handed hitter that can play all three positions. I mean, he is someone that we kind of know what we're getting. We know what the possibilities are. And it's a fine depth piece. I think it is going to add some interesting competition there in camp. Certainly someone that has been going through it and is familiar with the way the Rockies work. Be nice to see. I mean, we know the guy can really, really mash. We know the guy has huge potential when it comes to that power. So here's a tweet from Thomas Harding. To increase competition in the outfield, the Rockies are reuniting with Sam Hilliard by claiming him off waivers from the Orioles. Hilliard hit .212 with 29 home run and 71 RBIs with the Rockies from 2019 to 22. Hilliard played 40 games with the Braves last year, batting .236 with a 3 home run. Let's see here. Also, this is from Purple Row, from Mac Wilcox here. Rockies claim Sam Hilliard off waivers. Brenton Doyle seems likely to start in center, but that's not 100%, especially if his bat can't keep up with his marvelous glove work. Right field, meanwhile, is wide open. Sean Bouchard, Bradley Zimmer, Hunter Goodman, and now Hilliard all appear to be options. We'll see if Hilliard can make the adjustments the Rockies are looking for to win a starting or bench role and break camp with the Major League squad. The move, as pointed out by Harding, gives the Rockies a buffer for young prospects like Zach Veen, Jordan Beck, Benny Montgomery, and young Gil Fernandez to continue to develop without losing at-bats on the Major League bench. To make room for them on the 40-man, right-hander Antonio Senzatella has been placed on the 60-day IL. And, I think that's important. We've talked a lot about blocking players at the Major League level, but doing it at the minor league level is the same thing. If the Rockies have these guys that they believe are close to Major League ready, but they're not getting in there because right field's taken by Chuck or KB or this, that, and the other thing, that's going to impact their abilities to get at bats in the minors. So doing something, for this, I think that is the right move. I think that those players still need a little bit more time in that developmental area, and then to come back in maybe into the second half of the season where we can see some of these guys. I think that continuing the competition in right field is great. I think having that position be so up in the air this early in camp is a good way for these guys to be able to develop and work on it. And hopefully Hilliard can come back and find a little bit of that pop and see if he can be an effective. I think he'll be a bench piece. I don't think he's going to win the starting spot. I think he will be preferred over Zimmer because of the ability to play all those positions and the batting style, but we'll see what it's kind of an interesting thing. Young prospect-ish type guy still trying to figure out his way versus a vet. We'll see how that works out. And of course, with the other young guys trying to get their starting spot lined up as well. So we'll see what happens with the Sam Hilliard move. I think it's a fine move, and the Rockies paying attention, and they got a guy they know they're comfortable with. They know what they're getting, and hopefully they can get him back to some power hitting ways. Hey, let's look ahead for the Rockies and see what is next. Do a quick little recap of things we liked from that game with the Angels there. Coming up next here on today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Before we do that, though, got to tell you about folks that help make this show possible, and that includes FanDuel. Get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. Yes, that's $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet if your bet wins. That means you want to take the Nuggets money line? Go for it. That's a win for you. Or maybe you want to bet on a fun parlay. Maybe you want to see some of the prop bets that are going on. Maybe you don't want to bet on basketball alone. You can bet on hockey. You can bet on futures for baseball. You can bet on futures for football. You can bet on all sorts of stuff. at America's #1 sportsbook with the super easy-to-use FanDuel app. See all the action for yourself and don't miss out on $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet when you head to FanDuel.com/locked-on. That's FanDuel.com/locked-on to shoot your shot. FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA. This is the Locked On Rockies podcast for free and streaming on your favorite streaming services, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. A leap year pod here for you all. Of course, hey, if you aren't liking the shows, if you're not subscribing, if you're not doing all that stuff, well, that's okay. But if you do like the videos, if you do subscribe, if you do fire off your Rockies hot takes in the comments, I will appreciate it. It helps the show grow, and we get to do more episodes like this where we get to talk to the fans and see what's on their mind. Rockies yesterday do win 3-2-1 in probably the first look at the lineup, basically. What I would imagine is most likely going to be the lineup opening day for the Rockies. Started with Blackmon, Bryant, Nolan Jones, Brendan Rodgers, Ryan McMahon. Looks like, did Elias Diaz start as catcher? He did start as catcher, but was quickly, only got one at bat in that game. Sean Bouchard and Ezekiel Tovar, Brenton Doyle, and Austin Gomber on the bump, if I'm reading it all correctly. So basically a starting lineup for the Rockies. And the Rockies do win the game. Not too much going on there in terms of noise from a lot of the starters, but a nice, good thing to see. A couple of hits from KB. The swing's looking good. Health looking good there for the Rockies aircraft carrier, as he has been referred to. Good game for Ryan McMahon as well, picking up a couple of hits and an RBI in that one as well. Sean Bouchard picking up an RBI, as well as Tovar picking up an RBI. A couple of errors there for the Angels, one for the Rockies in that one. I didn't actually get to watch this one too much, but that's, hey, we'll take it. I like mixing in these starts with the lineup that you think that we might see on opening day and in the regular season, and then getting in a lot of these young guys still, as a ton of Rockies were in there. As for the pitching staff, kind of a meh day in terms of pitching. They didn't dominate, but they kind of stuck to that Rockies philosophy there of getting contact and getting themselves out of it. Only 4 strikeouts for the Rockies in pitching staff in this one, but the Rockies do give up, 9 hits in that one, but only the 1 run. That's good. That means the plan was working. The philosophy was working. The getting the weak contact, making sure the hits aren't going to do big damage. And of course, the big stuff too is trying to limit the walks, but 4 walks isn't going to help you in any situation. But Rocky's able to hang on and get the dub. When we're talking about those concerns there, a 4-walk game could be something that could spell trouble for the Rockies, especially when they find themselves down by a run early in that one. Instead, the Rockies bounce right back in the second, get the next run in the third, and then it's all zeros all the way out for the Rockies there. So, a nice spring training win as the Rockies get another spring training win under their belt. And up next, they are playing the Cubs today. I don't think I've seen any lineups or anything like that. When I record, it's still a little early. So, anyway, that is going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Thank you so much for making us your first listen of the day. Thank you so much for firing off your comments and letting me know. Maybe for Friday, keep the comments alive. Keep letting me know what's going on and what's on your mind when it comes to the Colorado Rockies. Really appreciate you making us your first listen of the day. Our second listen, or for your second listen, check out Locked On MLB. Or if you need more Colorado sports coverage, check out the Locked On Broncos, Locked On Avalanche, Locked On Nuggets, and Locked On Buffs podcast, all free and streaming on your favorite streaming services. Until next time, I'm Paul Holden saying so long from the Locked On Rockies podcast.